We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. I believe this is going to air on Sunday, but just for transparency's sake, we are recording it on Friday morning, right around 11 o'clock Central Time. So we haven't yet gotten to the midnight deadline in terms of the shutdown. And Ed is back with us. Everybody loves it when Ed comes in. I like it when Ed comes in. It's like old home week because we spent those many years on the air. It's just an easy flow between you and I because we both know what the fuck we're supposed to do.
Yeah, the only advantage back then was we didn't actually have to look at each other.
We weren't even in the same building.
No, we were miles apart, 10 miles as the crow flies, I guess, depending on the crow.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked every day, but we didn't necessarily see each other every day, which was kind of like here too. I mean, I do see you
Yeah,
here, but I
yeah,
don't have to bump into you at the grocery store, which is kind of nice.
yeah, yeah. Be honest with you, COVID is flaring up again down here, and it's
Oh,
already
wow.
possibly impacting our Christmas. My wife and I will always host Christmas Eve here for my brothers and their wives, and we may be without one brother and his wife. They've been exposed to COVID, which doesn't mean they have it, of course, but you know,
You got to
it's
be careful.
possible. Yeah, and anywhere that a group of people gets together, watch it. If you have to sit with a bunch of people in a room for an hour, this was church for them. Your chances are better. I went to my class reunion back in October, and about half the people who attended came down with COVID. But it
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, fortunately, I was vaxxed and boosted, so I didn't. But number of people did.
And now we have to worry about bird flu. Apparently, in
Yeah.
California and Texas, this is cropping up amongst people. And it's perfect because Donald Trump will be president. So we know this pandemic will be fucking handled.
Just as well as the last one, probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take your number, one of the million to die. That's
Yeah.
what we got to hope for.
And it is worrisome. I really don't believe that Robert Kennedy is going to be confirmed.
I don't
Um,
either.
but there's enough craziness in there anyway with people and vaccines. The fact that they're even willing to talk about vaccines as being some sort of on the table kind of thing. When you look at all of the diseases that have literally been eradicated by vaccination, that anyone would bring up this pseudoscience bullshit that can easily be disproved, and yet it's echoed. It's in that right wing echo chamber now so deep that people are not vaccinating their kids. I noticed pertussis was on the rise in certain areas of the country, something that you'd never even heard before,
Right.
and whooping cough also coming back. And will it be long? I remember when I was in high school. I never read Gone with the Wind, but a young lady did a book report on it, and apparently Scarlett O'Hara's first husband died of measles, and that shook me. I thought, people die of measles, and of course they did, but
Yeah.
you don't hear that anymore because why? Well, there's a vaccine. Also, if you go to the old graveyards, which I do sometimes because I want to checking out a place, but no,
Yeah.
I like
Seeing
the
about availabilities.
right, exactly. I like looking at the old tombstones. If you go, you'll notice that before vaccines became widely available, there's a plot of children. The kids died, between the ages of birth and 10. There's bunches of them in that window there. You don't see that anymore, not very often.
Well,
And it's just insane that people would even question that.
Well, it is insane that people question it. I mean, we grew up in an era, at least I did, where I would go to my elementary school, Longfellow Elementary School in South Minneapolis, and a couple times a year, maybe one time a year, all the kids would line up in the gym, and there'd be a nurse with like a vaccination gun, and you'd step up and you'd be scared, and they'd shoot you in the arm, and then they'd take the next kid.
Yeah,
Nobody questioned that, and
no.
of course, nobody died of ridiculous diseases that we shouldn't die of. One of the things we kept hearing people talk about. And I swear to God, I think it was just for shock's sake, but
Yeah.
they were talking about the polio vaccine. I
Yeah.
mean, how stupid can you possibly be? Even Mitch McConnell said, "Yeah, you don't want to fuck with polio. That's pretty serious." But
Right.
they talked about um, recalling the polio vaccine, and that got a lot of heat. And of course, Donald Trump comes out and says, "No, no, I believe in the polio vaccine." And then Elon Musk said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, so do I." I mean,
Yeah.
this is the problem with these people. They can't get their stories straight. They throw
No.
something out as egregious as possible, and then when they get pushed back, they go, "Oh yeah, I was just kidding."
And this is the thing about that. Yes, there are adverse effects to a very small number of people, and if you're unlucky enough to be one of them, I do feel for you. But sometimes the public good overrides that, and quite frankly, people die from aspirin. They die from
Right.
overdosing on Tylenol because they can't afford dental care. I mean, there are drawbacks to everything, and everything is a potential poison to somebody. But by and large, nobody died of the polio vaccine or any other one that I'm aware of. Now, there were some, I believe, some. I don't know how well documented they are, but perhaps there were some adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine. I didn't hear of any where I am. It's
No.
always my uncle's cousin's brother over in Seattle died from the vaccine, but there's no documentation, there's no backup on it. It's all the same kind of word of mouth as the kids in the high school are allowed to identify as cats and use litter boxes instead of the bathroom. That actually went around here, and people believed it. I mean, it's insane that the echo chamber, both right and left, really. There's all kinds of insane stuff that comes up that we would have laughed at, I think, years ago.
Absolutely.
But social media is so deceptive in that if you're in a group and the group believes it, you come to believe it too, it seems like.
Yeah, it's funny. People don't look at facts anymore. They hear
Mm.
the noise in the air, and if they hear something that sounds sexy or salacious to them, or something they agree with, they immediately attach truth to it.
Yeah.
They have no creative understanding. They just accept anything that's slapped in the face, and that's why we looked at what happened with Donald Trump. He did nothing but lie for
Mm.
4 years with Joe Biden in office, and a ton of people believed it. I mean, it when they realize that they've been lied to, and I think some of them are coming to that point right now. It's got to be fucking embarrassing.
Maybe the more intelligent ones will begin to do that, but I'm not seeing it. Here where I am, which went like 80%, I think it was 76% for Trump. They're still defending him. They're saying, oh, somebody pointed out online in a local forum that, well, he's looking at the Republicans are looking at reducing Social Security, different things, which is absolutely true. Some
Mhm.
of them have even introduced bills. They've said we have to take a look at this and so forth. And of course, Musk and Ramaswamy and all of these guys are echoing that or are putting it out there, whatever. But they're still saying, well, Trump will replace it with something better.
Like he did healthcare.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah.
concepts for a replacement. Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
there's something happening now that I think is interesting. I think people have taken to this, like the Lincoln Project and people in social media. This whole thing with the shutdown. As I
mhm.
say, we were doing this 11 o'clock on Friday, Central Time. So this is before the imminent shutdown or last minute save. I've always said with these shutdowns that at the last minute of the last day, they'll come up with something. Mike Johnson will bend and he'll have to take a beating from the Republicans. He may lose his job, but they will keep it open. Now, to me, I kind of hope it shuts down for a couple of days, mainly because I want people to see the problems with the Republican Party. This was already set up and it was ready to be signed. And of course, Donald Trump and Elon Musk got in there and had to create some chaos. But my point is that you're hearing a lot more people saying something that I'm just loving. They're referring to President Elon Musk and Vice President Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's the right tack to take.
Yep.
Stir that shit up, and Donald Trump will lose his shit.
Absolutely. My wife and I were just talking about that this morning, that as soon as Trump sees that Musk is getting credit for something, or getting even the publicity or the notice for it, or if he's getting wind that he's being controlled by Musk, he will lose it and Musk will be gone.
He will be gone. You know, the ironic thing about Elon Musk, for all
Several.
the well,
Go ahead.
for all the concerns of immigration, he is an immigrant. And there's
Mhm.
reason to believe that he may be an illegal immigrant. Isn't that
Yeah.
ironic that that's who would be leading the party after all these years of complaining about illegal immigrants?
Yeah, I'm all for what's the term that you're talking about now? Denaturalization. I want to see Elon denaturalized, if he's even naturalized. Rupert Murdoch is another one. I mean, we got to get rid of these immigrants that are screwing up our country. Rupert Murdoch, Elon Musk, Ramaswamy, I think it was actually born here, but let's throw him and his parents both out. So we don't
Well,
want to separate the family.
right. Well, yeah, he may have been born here. Elon Musk's kids may have
No,
been born here. They
yeah.
weren't born here.
Oh, I don't
Well, maybe
know. Some of
I
them
think
maybe.
some of them. I think some of them maybe, but they would have birthright citizenship. And
Yeah.
that's one thing Donald Trump wants to get rid of too. Let's throw all the motherfuckers out.
Yeah. Keep the family together. That's fine. And while you're at it, Trump's grandfather was probably illegal. So let's throw them out too. All of them. I know the thing about Musk that really bugs me, or the thing about people, the way they relate to Musk, they see this guy as a genius. He's not. He did
No,
not
he's not a
invent
genius.
Tesla. He did not invent SpaceX. He did not invent PayPal. He just bought them,
Right.
and hired other people to do the work, and he took the credit. I mean, with PayPal, he listed himself as a founder after he bought it. I mean, this is insane stuff. They're all cut from the same cloth. Born on third base, think they hit a triple, and kind of stuff. To quote Molly Ivins, the and Jim Hightower before her, I believe. But anyway, these people do not deserve what they have. It was given to them. It was handed to them, just like Trump given $400 million, which he immediately, of course, lost most of it. So
Right.
these people are not smart. They're not in any way qualified to do anything. Their idea of they're like who's the guy from General Electric? Was it Jack Welch? That
Yeah.
neutron Jack, that kill all the people and save the buildings. I mean,
Right.
economically speaking, this is what they're like. They know how to do is cut costs by eliminating staff, or cutting wages, or keeping wages at abysmally low. You want to fix Social Security, raise the minimum wage.
Raise the minimum
How
wage
how hard is
and
that?
tax. The problem with Social Security, you only have to pay Social Security up to a certain amount of money. It's like 150,000.
168,000 now.
Right. Anybody above that doesn't pay any more Social Security. If they paid something commensurate with what they were making, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have a problem with Social Security. Easy fix. But this is the problem that we keep getting the pushback on. Rich people don't want to pay their due in taxes. And
They
if
don't
we
want
were
to pay
just able
any
to do that,
taxes.
right,
Any
right,
taxes. I
exactly.
mean, Amazon pays no taxes. None of these billionaires companies pay very much, if any at all, and some of them may even get kickbacks. Why should we be supporting the oil industry? I mean, they have record profits going down, but we're still giving them subsidies. And so many other things. Well, and in this, let's talk about this bill, right? One of the reasons they want to pass the funding bill that keeps coming up is, we've got to support the farmers. Now, I come from a farm background. Both my parents came from sharecropper families, which is, the white version of slavery in the South.
Right,
But
right.
anyway, they keep bringing up the farmers. Let me tell you this: they're not talking about the farmer who gets up at 5 in the morning and goes and tills his fields and all that. They're talking about big pharma. I mean, big farms. Big pharma, of course, is drugs,
Right.
but
Right.
we're talking about the agri industry. These gigantic farms that absorbed all of the small farms. That's who they're talking about. That's who these subsidies go to. These giant soybean. When Trump was in last time, of course, he put a tariff on China and they stopped buying our soybeans, which was devastating to those who produce soybeans. We had to bail them out to the tune of billions of dollars. But this all went to big farms, to this gigantic industry where we keep having food problems. The FDA is underfunded, they're understaffed, they can't track them all down. One week it's eggs, the next week it's something else, and then it's salmonella in chicken or beef or whatever. We're back in the jungle again. So far as our food production goes, with three or four companies producing all the beef, another couple of three doing all the eggs and so forth. You know how it works.
Right.
So I don't care if they go broke. I'm sorry. That's their problem. But the small farmers I do care about. Corporations, destroy them, break them up. That's what I say.
With all that's going on with Donald Trump being inaugurated on January 20th, we see a lot of shit flying. And
Yeah.
we know a lot of this is going to go badly.
Mm-hmm.
For as little as people have paid attention over the last 4 to 8 years regarding Donald Trump and his attempt to destroy the country, the democracy, the economy, and all that sort of thing, and people just have not been able to be convinced or have enough critical thinking to understand what's going on. Do we just need it to come to a fucking head and be an absolute disaster before people recognize what's going on? Unfortunately, is that the thing we have to do?
Well, history would indicate that's the case because, quite frankly, the best era for uh, working stiffs, our parents, our even our grandparents in some cases, the best era for them was ushered in by the trauma of the Great Depression because
Mhm.
it destroyed the power of the oligarchs to control the government. And then we've got Roosevelt in, who was very popular and served 3 terms and was elected to a fourth, and was able to get in all of the things that created the middle class: Social Security, home loans, business loans, everything that made life between 1948 and 1973 really good for primarily white Americans.
Right.
So that came out of the disaster of the Great Depression. Had there not been a depression, would it have happened? Probably not.
Well, and that's a disturbing thing. With all we know, with all the information available and all the misinformation available, uh, the 20s, 30s, and 40s are a long way from the 2020s era.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sad commentary on this country that we have to get a foot implanted up our ass before we come to the realization that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. But that's what it seems to be, unfortunately.
Right. It's really, when you think about it, when you look back, this is what we have now is exactly what we had before the Depression. You had groups of American royalty, families like Rockefellers and so forth, who controlled huge amounts of money and were able to do pretty much what they wanted to, choose presidents and so forth, and stay in the background. But they ran things. Everybody knew it. And then the Depression came, and a lot of those fortunes just evaporated because they were invested in things that didn't really exist, a paper fortune, so to speak. Where have we seen that before? During the Bush administration, of course. Where will we see it again? During the Trump administration as crypto, because, I mean, I understand a little bit, and if it were properly regulated, perhaps it should be available as an investment for some people. But Trump's already talking about basing the treasury, instead of the gold standard, putting it on a crypto standard, which is a gigantic recipe for complete failure, not only here but worldwide. And we may have to learn that again.
Well, and the problem with it is that Donald Trump doesn't know fuck all about crypto.
No,
He doesn't
or
know fuck all
anything.
about crypto. It's Elon Musk's influence and the fact that he allows Elon Musk to influence him. It's funny for all this stuff going on about people talking about Elon, and typically Donald Trump, when somebody gets more attention than he does,
Mhm.
he kicks them aside. Now that's been going on for a little bit, and Donald Trump hasn't been coming back with all the things that Elon Musk has said and people are saying about Elon Musk. I have to think that the one thing that Elon Musk has is something more important to Donald Trump than adulation and power. He's the richest guy in the world. I
Yeah,
heard a story that Elon Musk, and he's an evil motherfucker. He
yeah,
basically has got a carrot out to Donald Trump, suggesting that maybe he would buy True Social and merge it with Twitter, which would be
yeah,
a huge payday for Donald Trump.
yeah.
So he's got that hanging out there in front of Donald Trump. And this is why maybe Donald Trump is holding back. I know it's killing him because his ego is his most important thing, but he kind of likes that money. And Elon Musk, right at this point, as far as I'm concerned, has played Donald Trump, has
Absolutely.
leveraged Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has turned into his little bitch.
Yeah, I mean, he spent a lot of money on getting Trump elected, but for him, it was chump change, right? But really didn't even notice that he made it back before he spent it. But yet, it
Right.
was a big part of getting Trump elected, and Trump used his I don't know. I won't say gravitas, but that you get what I mean of
I do.
Elon
Yeah.
Musk, his legend or whatever you will. Um, I really think the real problem, though, is when fascists go to take over a country, they do not do it by writing editorials and appealing to the intellectuals with arguments. They do
Right.
it by turning the stupid, the ill-informed, the ignorant, who become their brown shirts, their later, and also simply, in our case, just give their votes to this chimera that is a made-up person that doesn't even exist. I mean, Trump has become to some almost saintly. I mean, because he's been dubbed that way by these reprobate preachers um, that are only in it for the money. And as a matter of fact, I don't know of a preacher on TV that is worth their salt. I don't know of one, not
No,
one.
I don't either.
They're
I don't
all
either.
creepy money grubbers, every one of them. If you're watching a preacher on TV, turn it off because all they want is your money. They've got no message. There's only one message: love thy neighbor. That's it. Boom, you're done. You know,
You know, it's I like watching documentaries from time to time, and I
yeah,
always heard this name, but I never really knew the story because it was long ago. But the precursor for all these grimy, grubby, money grubbing pieces of shit was Amy Semple McPherson.
yep,
This woman was hugely popular. She was going viral in the 20s, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden she disappeared, and it turned out that she didn't die and she wasn't kidnapped. She just basically snuck off and had an adulterous affair with a married guy and then came back, and she suffered for it when she came back. But that was really the precursor, the 20s. This woman realized she could have a certain amount of power and hoodwink people and have them send them money. And the most disturbing thing about when I look at these preachers and I look at Donald Trump,
same
I
thing.
am, yeah, it's the same thing. And I'm very disappointed by just how many stupid people there are in this country, people that are gullible, that will get sucked into anything. There are people who look at anybody with money with reverence and they worship them because they want the money and they think somehow by association they'll get some. They won't. They'll get their shit taken, but they're too stupid to understand what's going to happen until it's too late.
Yeah, see, I blame the media for that. Not just social media, but even when I was a kid, we had um, a few of them around that would, and I'm going to throw Billy Graham in with the rest of them because he'd get these when I was a kid, you'd have 3 or 4 nights Billy Graham on TV, and that's all you could watch on one channel.
He'd be on
Um,
Johnny fucking Carson.
oh yeah, and all of that. But you had others. You had Oral Roberts and ones that Oral started out a tent faith healer, right? And no tent faith healer has ever healed anybody. Go down to the emergency room if you want to heal people, then I'll believe you. You know,
Yeah.
I want to see somebody walk in with their leg broken and walk out. That's what I want to
Yeah.
see, and it will never happen. Hey, Mr. Televangelist, you're a liar. Everything you say is a lie. It's built on a lie. You are nothing but a con man. And I'm
It's
I'm
true.
talking about you, Joel. I'm talking about all of
Joel
you
Olstein.
people.
People
Yeah,
love Joel Olstein. I had people tell me, oh, he's the greatest guy. And now people are getting a different look at it. If you're
yeah,
in a position of power and you can give people's money, I question your integrity. I don't
yeah.
give a fuck who you are.
They never tell you what it's. Oh, we need money. We need money. We need. I've been seeing this thing going around, a meme of, I don't know who the guy is. He's got the typical swept back white hair, of the TV evangelist saying that Jesus can't come back because donations are down. Okay, you're telling me that the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful ruler of the universe needs money? Hmm.
Yeah.
Seems strange, doesn't it?
Well, it
You
goes
know,
back to Robert Schuller. Remember Robert Schuller? And
Crystal.
now yeah, well, he was this kind of, he seemed normal
Yeah,
and people liked him and they revered him. And he would say, I need money. But you got a fucking crystal cathedral, for God's sake. You really need money?
yeah.
I need a new garbage disposal and you need money. Fuck
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Well, this is it. They always make it sound like they're using the money to harvest souls, as it were, but it all goes into their new plane or their yacht or
Right.
their mansion or whatever. That's where it goes. But the deceptively simple con is, send me some money and you'll get tenfold back. That's the con. And the weak-minded and those who are desperate will go, well, I got $10. I could use 100. I'll send him the 10. And it never happens, but that's because they didn't have enough faith, you see.
Right. Right.
And that's why
Right.
they weren't healed, because they didn't have enough faith. Well,
It's
once
your fault.
again,
But I'll
I
keep the money.
right. I'm going back one more time. It's simple, folks. Love your neighbor. That's it. That's the one commandment. It supersedes all the other commandments. Love your neighbor. Everything flows from that. If you can do that, you're home free.
Yeah.
Catholic Church backs me on that, by the way. It doesn't matter what your religion is. If you are sincere and love your neighbor, you got it knocked. Now I'm speaking to folks who uh, who are religious. I am not. However, I can read. I can. I know what your central figure said. Love thy neighbor. Boom.
And those of
That's
you
it.
coming together, in the Church of Mike and Ed, we'll have a
Mm,
GoFundMe.
yeah,
The
exactly.
GoFundMe plate will be going around. No, it won't. It
No,
won't.
it
I
won't.
mean,
And we're not going to ask for your money. We don't.
no,
Not that I couldn't use a few bucks, but I don't want to swindle it from you, right? And this is strange because, see, I grew up in fundamentalist churches, and the message when I was a kid was, "You're not getting anything in this life. You're poor. You just maintain, keep your faith, and you're going to go to heaven and you're going to live in a mansion and have everything you want. Rich people are going to hell. They're getting theirs now. You get yours later." And that was the message coming out of the pulpits, right? Except at the church where the rich people went. Of course,
yeah.
it wasn't the same. But in the small churches that I went to as a kid, that was the message. It was, no, send me your money and you'll get rich. It was, you're not going to get it in this life because the deck's stacked against you, bud. But if you're faithful, if you practice love, hope, and charity, and you keep your nose clean, you get to go to heaven. But the rich people ain't gonna make it. You know.
It's amazing that in 2024, we are still working our way through a class system.
Yeah.
You're poor, we're rich, we're better, we're in power because we're smarter. Now, this is something that's been going on for hundreds of years. You
Yeah.
would think by 2024 we'd come to the idea that that whole thing doesn't work, that maybe we could look at other opportunities. And the whole reason we can't do that is because the wealthy, the powerful, the Republicans have been able to continue to gaslight and hoodwink people into the very thing that you're talking about. I'm poor. That's just the way it is. I've got no hope. We've got to revere the rich because they're the ones that will control the country and help us out. That hasn't worked in my lifetime and
Or
beyond.
or
When do
anyone's.
people realize it? Yeah, any life, really. And I
Um,
felt like when Kamala was going to come in, we'd at least be able to start down that road.
yeah,
And then when the dumb people of this country chose, no, we'll stick with what's not working.
yeah.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, well, they all want to believe that if they work hard and keep their nose clean, they can be a millionaire. Well, the deck is stacked against them. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. We need a major wealth tax in this country. Oh, but the billionaires will leave. Good.
Fine.
don't let the door hit you on the way out. No, we need to do that because there's no other way to access to by living in this country, rich people get a benefit. They get the benefit of our army protecting what they have. They get to use the roads. They have a fire department that will come and put out the fire in their garage if they have one. They get all the benefits of citizenship without paying for it. You and I pay for it. I just saw Trump tax cuts were getting ready to expire with if Kamala had been president, they would have, and something better would have been done. They'll be renewed, and right now it's the lowest pay 20%, the highest pay 1%. That's the Trump tax cut. It was heavily stacked toward the wealthy. It will be again. Plus, he wants to cut the corporate tax rate to 15%, which is nothing. Remember, it used to be in some cases 90%. Reagan cut it from 70% down to I think 38% or something like that. It's gone down. Bush cut it. Been going down ever since. Trump cut it again. It'll be cut again, unless the filibuster, whatever, can. There's going to have to be a lot of resistance, and it's going to have to keep going for 2 years at least. After
Yeah.
that, I think we can seize control of Congress, and that will help some. I
But
hope.
but if we seize Congress, that only puts everything in a holding pattern
Yeah.
because unless we have a supermajority, Donald Trump will never sign it.
Well, as you said, do we have to go through tribulation in order to get where we need to go? Maybe we do. Two years of people losing everything may turn things around, and or at least they'll see how muddled and without anybody in the presidency. Because let's face it, Trump is mentally challenged. He's physically challenged. He can't work. He can't his cognitive ability isn't there. Um, he can drone on for 2 hours with, made up crap. I mean, that's easy. I could do that. I'm doing it right now.
I'm doing it right now too. I do it every
Yeah,
fucking day. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if you can move your lips and expel air over your vocal cords, you can do it. And that doesn't mean he's smart. That doesn't mean that he has any real ideas. It's like he said, I have concepts for a plan, which he didn't. He has no plans for anything because he doesn't have the intellectual ability to come up with them, and he doesn't trust anyone else to because he's afraid they'll get the credit. So he comes up first time he runs on we've got to stop the immigration, and then he expands on that. We're going to throw them all out. Hide and watch. That ain't going to happen. I mean, they may try. They may try
Yeah.
that, but there's going to be a lot of pushback from, especially from blue states. But let's face it, you've got a meatpacking plant in Alabama, and all your workers are from Guatemala and El Salvador and Mexico and so forth, and they're going to come in and throw them all out. Your meatpacking plant just closed because white people aren't come in and do that.
Right. Well, that's the interesting thing. We have all these corporations and all these Republicans supporting Donald Trump. We're getting Donald Trump in no matter what. And
Hmm.
make no mistake, it's only about tax cuts. That's the only
Yeah,
reason
that's it.
they like the idea of Donald Trump coming in. But now that he's coming in and he's talking about tariffs, even though he talked about it before the election, now all these corporations and even governors like Greg Abbott are going, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't do the deportation because it's going to fuck us economically.
Right.
Now, the thing they forgot about Donald Trump is when you tell Donald Trump not to do something,
He's
he'll
going to do
double
it.
down, he'll triple
Yeah.
down, he'll shove it down your throat just to prove he's right. And every time he proves he's wrong. This is how the way it this is the way it goes. And how do these corporations not have enough foresight or understand history to know they're going to get fucked in the end? It's just amazing to me.
Because they don't believe it. They believe that they have the Senate and they have guys in the House. They have their people in there who can stop that from happening. They can defund it. They can not fund it, whatever. I mean, the wall never got built, never did.
Yeah,
And Steve Bannon
no.
tried to scam people out and went to prison for it a little bit. But
Well,
no,
he went to
I mean, he
prison
got
for
pardoned.
he
He got pardoned. Yeah,
no, no, well, he got pardoned on something, but he went to prison for contempt of Congress. But he
right.
is going on trial again for that grifting of that money.
Yeah,
So he
the
may
state
go back to
charges.
jail. Probably
That
will.
That would be great, but quite frankly, I don't think he matters anymore. He's been
No,
eclipsed by Trump and
Elon.
Elon and Rama Swarmy, but the Smarmy, I should say, but the who seems to be like the sidekick, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's like Baba Louie. He's like
Yeah,
Baba Louie or the lesser of the Three Stooges.
yeah,
You know, we
Larry.
got
He's a
Mo.
Larry. Yeah,
He's Larry. He's
yeah.
Larry. Yeah, it's amazing to me uh, that it's just such a goofball show and people are buying into it. I think we are seeing some people like corporations or other people now finally realizing, hey, we fucked around and found out. There's a lot of people that are saying, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I've been trying to tell them, you've been trying to tell them for the last
Yeah,
4 years, and they
yeah.
don't fucking listen. So maybe they need to get their ass kicked before we can. I've always said that people don't do anything until they get pinched in the ass. And there's going to be a lot of people pinched in the ass. Unfortunately, innocent people are going to get it too.
Exactly. I'm hoping that it happens within 2 years, and then people will say, "Whoa, I didn't sign on for this. I need my Social Security," and perhaps then things can be righted. If there were such a groundswell, there something has to be done about Fox News, though. I mean, and not just Fox News, but there's many others enablers that need to be shut up. Free speech. Free speech is fine as long as you're confined to the truth. Free speech should not cover falsehoods. There's no such thing as alternative facts. There's only facts. But
Right.
people are bombarded, and now it's generational. Fox News has been on in the homes of some people for what 40 years, going on 50 years now, something like that. It started sometime in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
Um,
About
uh,
that.
and that it
By a
was
sexual predator.
yes, exactly, and
Chaos.
yes, and but Murdoch was brought in, was given citizenship by Ronald Reagan to do that,
Right.
to create this organ that would go against the mainstream media. And for every truth would create a lie. But everybody I know around here watches Fox News and accepts it as gospel and thinks that
Right.
oh, by the way, I got to throw this in. I just saw this the other day that on X, Musk directed everybody to watch an interview between Tucker Carlson and some Nazi guy, Nazi apologist, who said that the Germans never meant to kill all those Jews. It was a failure of logistics. And and this
Wow.
this is what Musk is directing people to. Never forget that Musk is a Nazi. That's where his background is. His father, all of those Afrikaners, the white guys in South Africa, are very much in tune. A lot of the ones who saw it going downhill near the end of World War II. A lot of them just took off to South Africa. The ones that could,
Right.
So I'm sure I don't know anything about Musk's father except he owned an emerald mine, but I'm sure they have plenty of Nazi tendencies in that family. The Germans, the Nazis fled to South America, to South Africa. Just, there were plenty of places all over the world. Even here, of course, we had Operation Paperclip, where we um, stole a bunch of the Nazi scientists and brought them here. Werner von Braun, father of the
Right.
space program, the rockets and so forth, used Jewish slave labor and so forth. He should have gone on trial in Nuremberg, but no, we brought him here. And when I was growing up, he was a hero, but he was a
Yeah.
Nazi.
He was a Nazi. Well, Elon Musk is a rich white guy that came from apartheid South
Mm-hmm.
Africa. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a stretch to think that motherfucker's a racist.
Yeah,
That's what he grew up in.
I think really, and it's not just him; it's all the oligarchs together, and I'm including Trump in that, or not Trump. I don't care about the Putin.
Yeah.
That's all he is, really. I mean, he's more of a mafia guy than he is an oligarch, but still, they all see that maybe we can have one world government, and it will be us. That's what they're looking for, some kind of technocratic um, miracle government that rules the entire world. That's what they're going for. And these guys, believe me, every one of them is twisted. I mean, I'm including Bill Gates in this.
Yeah.
He wasn't flying to Epstein's Island for the scenery. I'm sorry,
No.
Bill. That's why your wife divorced you, because you're a creep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that seems to be the thing that throws everybody into hell or evil when you have excessive amounts of money. Let's look. Donald
Mm-hmm.
Trump, Elon Musk. Don't forget, Elon Musk has some problems with sexual assault too.
Yeah.
He's got some issues going on there. You've got Donald Trump. You've got Epstein. You've got Diddy. You've got anybody that's got some power has some skeletons in their closet. And it's because they've been given the opportunity to do anything they want. And they believe they can get away with anything they want to do. And largely up to recent times, it's true. They get away with fucking everything. I mean, Epstein's Island didn't start 5 years ago. That's been
No.
going on for a long time. P. Diddy didn't start doing his shit 5 years ago. It's been decades. And because they're wealthy, they get away with it. And this is why Donald Trump is in the position he's in now. Every time he fails, well, he's got money, so we've got to prop him up.
Yeah.
And we keep hoping that there's going to be some accountability for the likes of Donald Trump or any of these rich motherfuckers. So what's he do? He decides to put together a cabinet of billionaires.
Yeah.
Who in their right mind would think if you have a government run by billionaires, they're going to help the middle class? You'd have to be a fucking ignorant piece of shit to believe that. But we have 48% of this country that do.
Right, and look with the hurricane damage, especially in North Carolina and Tennessee and so forth, because I'm fairly near to it here. I didn't see billionaires lining up to fund stuff. They throw in a little bit to get noticed and stuff, but Dolly Parton was the only one with any real investment in the area. Where are the others? They could
Yeah.
very easily have built a house for everybody who lost one and gave them a Tesla, you know. Uh, but no, that didn't happen, and still be fabulously wealthy and probably make it back everything they gave the next day. But no, they don't, because they've got to hoard. What's the difference between the old lady who has 200 cats in her house and Elon Musk? Not a lot, except he has money.
The thing about Elon Musk, what I noticed from him, this guy clearly is on the spectrum, and there's nothing wrong with people on the spectrum. A lot of them are very bright. Elon is not that bright. I mean, he took Twitter from a $44 billion value down to 10. That's a
Hmm.
fucking genius. But this guy is so socially awkward. I don't know how he gets by. He's an immigrant. He may be an illegal immigrant. He's socially awkward. The only reason people bow to this motherfucker is because he has money. The only reason he has money is because daddy gave it to him and he bought fame. He bought credibility. But somehow he it's so parallel to Donald Trump. He doesn't really do anything on his own. I mean, he's
Hmm.
got three companies running and he's out partying in Mar-a-Lago every fucking night.
Yeah.
Apparently, he doesn't have a fucking job.
Well, his companies don't really do anything. I mean, he puts people in place to manage these properties, and then that's it. You know,
Yeah,
that's what he does. I mean, what did he have, like, besides family, two employees, something like that,
yeah.
in his vast company? He had an accountant and a couple other people, and of course, none of his businesses do anything. I mean, they operate golf courses. They put their name on buildings that they then
Right.
rent, that kind of thing. That's not really doing anything. It's not accomplishing anything. Um, same with all of them, really. I mean, Amazon moves stuff from place to place. Um, Microsoft is kind of almost automatic pilot.
Yeah.
Um, and I
They,
don't,
they,
I
they
don't,
build they build money machines. It's like
yeah,
putting up a vending machine someplace and just collecting the money once a week. That's pretty much what they do.
yeah. And I saw something the other day that made a lot of sense to me that up until about the 70s, um, business in America was about making things and providing services and so forth, right? It was about making cars or creating components for this or that or nuclear react, whatever it might be. These big companies were doing. They were they were producing something, and people were involved in doing that. They hired people to do that and so forth. Um, but after the 70s and till today, it's just money making money. That's all they're
Yeah.
doing. I mean, the products are imported from somewhere else. We're not making them here, and they're as shoddy as they can possibly be, so they break. So you have to replace them. I just saw a meme this morning about a refrigerator. Refrigerators built in now last you a couple of years. The one in the garage that was built in 1980 will outlive you. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's very much true. I've got a lawnmower down there that's been going for over 20 years, and all I do is put oil in it and gas once in a while and wash it off once in a while. But it's still running just fine and sharpen the blade occasionally because it was made when they knew how to make stuff. And it's not all plastic, it's all metal, except for a few little parts, right? But we don't do that anymore. We don't make anything. What we do is take, for example, insurance companies. They take the money that they're supposed to pay your medical bills with it, and they invest that money in other things. Then they don't have the money to pay your medical bills, so they deny your claims. It's a scam. It's money making money, and that's all they do. It's they get a lot of money and they buy Kmart and they run that into the ground, and then they buy Sears and run that into the ground, or they buy a restaurant chain and they run it into the ground, and then they sell the property that it's owned and they make their money and they go look for another one. It's money making money. It has nothing to do with a real economy. It's a false economy, totally. And one other thing I was going to say earlier, you were talking about taxes and so forth and who pays and whatever. I don't remember the guy's name right now. You can Google it though. He became a Supreme Court justice. He was a Democrat. He was a lawyer for the tobacco companies, and he wrote a memo. This was before he became Nixon made him a justice. He wrote a memo to the Chamber of Commerce, the American Chamber of Commerce, the big overall group, right, and said, "Look, we're getting killed, or rather, business is getting killed because the Democratic Party has become the Santa Claus party. They're giving people Social Security, they're giving them home loans, they're giving them all of this stuff. We can't fight that, but what we can do is give them tax cuts, right? That'll make us the Santa Claus party too, but we'll direct that Santa Claus business to the rich people, right? And we will give them the tax cuts, and we'll move the burden of um,
Cost.
running, but basically running the country or funding the country, everything. We'll move that over onto the poor people, let them pay
Right.
for it, which is the strategy that has been used. Reagan, of course, immediately jumped on that and said, "Yeah, let's do that." You know, but
Absolutely.
this has been the policy since Reagan: tax cuts for the wealthy, and then make the other people, make us pay for it. And that's what they've done. Oh, yeah. And I just realized I have to correct myself. The What I was saying, the Santa Claus party thing, it, he actually called it two Santas in that the Democrats were offering. This guy's name is Jude Wanniski. That's Wanniski. He was an editorial writer for the Wall Street Journal who came up with this idea that, and he was influenced by the idea of supply side economics, that tax cuts could actually raise revenue, which has, of course, been completely. It never worked. It was never meant to work. It was just a way of getting tax cuts for wealthy people. That's all it was. But he became influential in putting this forward and saying, and then of course Reagan latched onto it, and Alan Greenspan and others who said, "Oh, this is the way to do it. Give money to rich people, and they will build more factories and hire more people, and everybody wins because it trickles down." And it's all bullshit. I direct you to a study by the London School of Economics, who did a 6-year study of not just the United States, but anywhere they've used trickle down. And all it does is make rich people rich. So that's Jude Wanniski, Wanniski, and
Well,
the
and
two
the, th-
Santa theory.
the thing about it is, tax cut could raise revenue if you apply it in the right way. If
Right,
you
but they
give it to
don't.
rich people and they put it in their pockets, nothing trickles down because they stop up all the holes. If you gave that extra money to the people who are just trying to survive, they will spend more on goods and services, which
Right.
would create more income and more taxes and more things like that. So the concept isn't totally a bad idea. It's just you apply it in the wrong place and there is no benefit from it by giving it to the rich. I kind of feel like this country's economy is almost based on a Ponzi scheme.
It is very
It's
much
like
so.
a it's like a pyramid scheme, and we're on the bottom, and the rich guys keep getting richer because they game the system.
Well, it's like they used to tell us in the army. The sergeants would tell us, "Look, in the army, shit runs downhill, and we're at the bottom of the hill." And that works the same way
True.
in economic policy in the United States. The money that they get from not paying taxes, they immediately offshore into tax havens, or they use it to beef up, the industries they actually own in other countries or fund. I mean, when they shut down the steel mills here, they funded the ones that they started up in China and elsewhere. I mean,
Right.
this was done on purpose, so that they've always, since the beginning of the country, really, certainly through the Gilded Age, and now again, the wealthy want a lot of poor people who are willing to work for whatever they want to pay, if anything. And well, I mean, the ideal was that we would have to work for nothing, of course. But and that's where they're aiming for. Ultimately, that's what all these guys want. They actually think that somehow or other that they're deserving, I guess, just because they've been able to. They were given this money in every case. Bezos and all of these guys were given money. They didn't. They didn't start from the bottom and work their way up. That pulling yourself by your own bootstraps American legend just doesn't happen that often. It does happen to some, but you really have to have boots before you can pull yourself up by the straps. And most people don't have boots below a certain level, and they're trying to push us all down there.
But it's a real easy economic concept. I'm not economist. I don't know much about that. I know if I got enough money to buy whatever. But here's the deal. Simply speaking, you give the money to the rich, they take it out of the system. They put
Yeah,
it in their pockets or invest overseas. You give the money to the middle class, it stays in the system. It circulates in the system because you got to buy food and gas and housing. That's what makes the system stronger. You would think these wealthy people would understand this. And it's not about that they don't understand it. It's that they're greedy and they want what they want now. They have no foresight or don't care about the foresight. Because if they were smart, they would cultivate the crops, which is the middle class, and bring the economy up. Joe Biden has proved that to us with some of the COVID relief bill, for example. That
yes.
did a lot of good, and all it did is give money to the middle class. The Republicans hate that, but it fucking worked.
Yeah, and it eliminated child poverty for a short while.
Yeah.
The child tax credit literally eliminated child poverty for a few months, and then the Republicans refused to renew it, or we would have seen a much higher standard of living for the lower third of the country, probably. But no, they're not going to let that happen. One of the tenets of the two Santa theory is that when Republicans take office, they spend like drunken sailors, and then the Democrats are forced to clean up after them when they take office, and in many cases reduce the safety net to make up for that. But that's what they've been doing. All you have to do is look what Reagan spent, look what Bush spent, look what Trump spent. They all increase the deficit by huge amounts that then the Democrats are forced to deal with.
Well, it's funny that they say they spend like drunken sailors, and it's a matter of perception.
Yeah,
When they send $1 trillion to the Defense Department or $2 trillion in write-offs or tax credits to the wealthy, nobody says a fucking word. The only time that they say they're spending like drunken sailors is when they give it back to us. It
yeah.
seems pretty clear what's going on. You don't have to be a brilliant guy or gal to understand what the fuck is going on. It's about the messaging, it's about the perception. And the
Yeah, and
Republicans have been very successful in getting people to believe, yeah, giving to the rich is the best way when it's not.
no, it isn't. And remember, there was no income tax in this country until very near the end of the 19th century, and then it was minimal. It wasn't until Roosevelt that the income tax actually kicked in and started to make a difference, right?
Right.
And rich people don't like to pay taxes of any kind. They don't like regulation of any kind, so they hate government. Period. And except they need it for defense and a few other things to give them more money. But those defense companies that we constantly pour money into, just like barrels and barrels of it every minute of every day. The people who own those companies and own stock in those companies are rich people. It's just taking the money from us, running it through the Defense Department, and sending it back to the rich people. That's all it is. It's a huge scam. And if you want some savings, there's where you'll find it in the black budgets, in the weapons programs that are never intended to work. And they're so sly about it because all of these defense manufacturers spread it across the country into many different companies spread out across the country. So Senator Bumfuck down in Georgia can go, oh, jobs for Georgia, right? And Senator Idiot out in Montana can do the same thing, or Colorado's a better example. Any place that there are defense industries, they spread it out so that they can get all this coalition of senators and representatives who are voting for, quote, jobs or money infusion into their local area. But it's still being stolen from you and me and anyone else who pays taxes to give to those who don't pay taxes because they've lawyered up to keep from doing it.
Yeah. I have a theory that I've floated on the show a couple of times. And since you're my elder
Mm-hmm.
and I'm curious as to what you think about it. Maybe you have a different perspective. I think Donald Trump was an asset to the Republican Party up until November 5th. After November 5th, I think he's a liability. And I think we're
Absolutely.
seeing that because corporations are going, oh no, wait, we don't want that. We don't want the
Mhm.
deportation. We don't want the tariffs. So now that once he gets inaugurated, he becomes a liability for the Republican Party. And
Right.
I think we'll see them handle him differently. People are terrified about the egregious, crazy shit that he wants to do. And I'm not saying the Republicans are going to do the right thing, but I think they're going to pull the reins in on him. And since he's really got nothing to hold over their heads anymore, because he can't win another election, all he can do is embarrass the Republicans, the country, and crash the economy. And the Republicans still need to get reelected in 26 and 28. I think they might even look to get rid of him, either the 25th Amendment or even Republicans impeaching him themselves. Oh, he lost his mind. We've got to impeach him, or the 25th Amendment, because JD Vance, for as weird as he is, at least he's weak. He can be controlled, and he will do exactly what they tell him. Donald Trump is a wild card. Nobody can control him. What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
I think you're right, 100%. And I think he is vice president simply because he is a wholly owned subsidiary of Peter Thiel, the South African money guy. Just like
Yeah.
Elon Musk, not much different. It's just Elon has Trump and Thiel has Vance. I mean, this is the way it was done. Thiel bought Vance a senatorship, and he also bought him the vice presidency. So yeah, he is there as a tool that they see that he will know. They know he doesn't have the ego Trump does. He doesn't have the baggage Trump does so much. So he will do exactly as he's told. He's just another Johnson without the religion. He's just a creepy little guy that they bought, and he's a good front for them. And yeah, he will. I predict he will be president, unless they decide to dump him and put Elon in, which I don't think they can do. But you never
No,
know. And,
they can't. They can't because he wasn't born in this country. He can't be president.
but they could change that, and they can change the number of years that a president can serve. They can do all of that if they get the votes to do it, which probably they can't. But no, I think you're absolutely right. He is very much. Oops, he is very much a liability, and Trump, that is, and Vance is their guy. So yeah, it could definitely happen.
But some people say to me, "Well, Vance is worse than Donald Trump," and I will say JD Vance as a president would be an absolute disaster. But I don't think he's worse than Donald Trump because he's got something to gain and something to lose. If he becomes president in the next 2 years, he's got to look at the hopes of, you know, the midterms and 2028. He has a chance to run again. So he has to kind of conform a little bit. He'll still be fucking crazy and still do bad things. But I think our biggest problem right now is Donald Trump because we don't know what he will do, and neither do the Republicans. We will get bad things from JD Vance, but we will get disastrous things from Donald Trump. So I'm
That's
hoping
it.
against hope that the Republicans do realize that and they do away with that motherfucker one way or another. And since they're the Republicans, it could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a used tissue now.
Yeah.
And they used him to wipe their nose with, and then now they're ready to throw him in the trash can. And that, quite frankly, I'm hoping that they do it quickly because the cult is still there. He does have that. Once you're in a cult, getting out of it is very, very hard. It takes a trauma of vast proportions usually for that to happen, or some sort of intervention by your relatives or whatever it may be. But Trump is a cult leader. He could get people to drink the Kool-Aid and not think twice about it. There
Yeah.
was a guy here who had a big sign on his house, run down piece of crap house. He had to be put a lot of resources into an "I'm voting for the felon" sign in his front yard. I mean, that tells you cult, 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 cult. And
Well,
I believe he's a good man with no evidence at all.
well, with evidence that he's not a good man, clear
Plenty of it,
evidence that he's
plenty
not a
of
good
it.
man. Well, here's the problem for the Republicans, though. You mentioned that there's a cult, and that is absolutely true. They're going to need to get rid of Donald Trump
That's what I'm
one way
saying.
or another.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
but no matter what they do, now 30% of their Republican Party, Trump-fucks, are going to be very angry at the rest of the Republicans. We know they have
Mm-hmm.
trouble with unity, but no matter what Donald Trump does, those 25, 30% of the people are going to stand by him. And when the Republicans kick him to the curb, they got a problem there because they're going to lose 25, 30% of the people that support them, as dumb as they are.
Yeah. I don't know. We don't have a cult figure, and quite frankly, the left is not big on cults, at least not in this country. Now, you could say that if you look at Stalin, Lenin, Pol Pot, Mao, and so forth, they were certainly cult figures.
Yeah.
And on the right, there are plenty there too. As a matter of fact, there's a one political theory, I forget what it's called, that the left and the right, it's circular, and they meet right they meet in the place where Trump lives and Putin lives and so forth, where right and left don't mean anything anymore, and it doesn't
Right.
really matter. An oligarch is an oligarch whether they come from the left or from the right, and the right will point to the abuses of the left in Russia, in China, wherever it may be, and we can point to Venezuela and all of the others that are right wing hellholes. But it doesn't really matter. They all want to be king, is what it comes down to.
Right. Right. I wonder if we're not at a point where our entire political structure is going to shift or change. The Republicans will reveal themselves in the coming term with Donald Trump. It will be a disaster economically, and people will be put off by the Republicans. But at the same time, including me, there's a little concern and disappointment in the Democratic Party. The reason Donald Trump won wasn't because of Donald Trump. The reason Donald Trump won is because the Republicans fucked up. They tripped over their own shoelaces. And I think a lot of people are angry with the Democrats too. So
Well,
if
I
you have
am.
people, I am too, yeah. And, I've said before that it's not Democrats versus Republicans. It's really us versus them because there are Democrats that feed off of us too. Um, do we see a change in the whole political system because people aren't feeling too good about the Democrats and will ultimately hate the Republicans? We got a two-party system and nobody likes any of them. What the
Right.
fuck do
And
you do then?
the solution, of course, is more parties and more of a parliamentary structure. I would imagine that's possible. I'm pissed at the Democrats. I'm pissed at Joe. I love Joe. I think Joe did a great job, but Joe should have said, "I'm an interim president. I did my 4 years. I got things
Yeah.
set up here, ready to move forward. I'm going to campaign for Kamala, and that's it." Right? I'm not.
Or
I'm not up
whoever.
for because I think our chances for the election died the moment Joe walked out on that stage for the debate. I looked at that man and I said, "Oh my God, he has really deteriorated." And believe me, I see it in the mirror, so I recognize it. This guy has deteriorated. He's feeble. He looks feeble. He will not be elected. And he should never have gone to that debate. He should never have run again. It should have been Kamala there. She would have won easily, in my opinion. She would have overcome all of the pushback against having a woman in the White House and so forth. I think it would have been historic had it not been Joe. So I'm mad at Joe. I'm mad at the people around him who did not step up sooner and advise him, "You're not going to make it, Joe. We see it. You should see it." They should have gone to Jill and said, "Jill, talk him out of it, please." Or any of his kids or anyone else. You got to tell this guy he cannot run again. And maybe they should have had an open primary. I don't know on that. I think it was lost before that,
Well,
though. I don't think it
people
mattered. And
People,
Kamala ran very, very well, and she
yeah,
should have been
people
elected, but not well enough.
people want to blame Kamala, but she did the best she could with what she had. She had the money, she
Mhm.
had the enthusiasm, but she had like 100 days, and you can
Yeah.
only do so much. I think Kamala made a mistake by sidling up with Liz Cheney, because the far left might have been all in, and I think that
Mhm.
might have been a breaking point for them. I think the campaign got a little greedy. We got all the Democrats, so now let's try to get Republicans. Well, you're never going to get the
Mhm.
Republicans. If you get
Mhm.
all the Democrats, you're going to win. You should have been happy with that. One of the things I find disappointing, and I would like to say that Joe probably shouldn't have run again. In hindsight, and hindsight is 2020. But one of the things that concerned me about this, I think one of the main reasons, the disappointing reason why Kamala didn't win, is because we've got far more racist and far more sexist in this country than we ever imagined. And I don't know if they gave her 4 years to run, if she could have still won with that group of people out there. They will never change their minds.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I think one of the problems is that as Democrats, at whatever our political persuasion is, we tend to, and I'm going to talk about white people right now because I'm one of them, and I know white people.
Uh,
Okay,
yeah,
and I grew up as a white person in the segregated South, and I saw it for what it was early on. And everybody that I know was racist, and to a certain extent, because they did not stand up against it.
right.
At the time, it took government action for that to happen. And government action happened because black people stood up, took the blows, and did it. Okay. There's always, when they do these civil rights thing, movies and so forth, there's usually a white savior involved, like Hidden Figures. They threw in this white guy,
Yeah,
to help out. Well, he didn't do that. I'm sorry, I don't. He didn't even exist. Okay,
right.
I'm talking about the mathematician women who put the man on the moon for NASA. Okay, you see that a lot, but we tend to look at the black people as a megalithic group that are all the same, and Hispanics, they're all the same. Well, I was just thinking about it the other day. When I was in the army, I was in there were several groups of people. There were a few college guys like me who had gone through college and then enlisted, and then there were the draftees, both black and white. The white draftees were mostly Southern guys. The black draftees were mostly Northern guys, and
Right.
then you had the Puerto Rican Hispanics, and then you had the Mexican or other South American Hispanics, and there was in my platoon that I was in charge of. There was a guy from his family had come from Mexico, and he actually had a college degree. And then there were the Puerto Rican guys who got drafted, had never been off the island, who came in, didn't speak very good English. And then you had the New York Hispanic guys from Puerto Rico who'd been there for generations, who were all these guys were different. They barely spoke the same language, and in many cases they didn't get along together.
Right.
Just because they happened to have a Spanish background did not make them one unit. We need to learn how to speak to different people where they are, because I think the Hispanic vote was very fragmented for that very reason. They have different priorities and they're different people. And we have to recognize that. We just can't see, well, the Hispanic vote. There's no such thing. There's many different kinds of Hispanics. There are very wealthy Hispanics who vote for Donald Trump because it's in their interest to do so. And there are very poor field people who don't vote because they can't. They're out to be out there in the field all day, even though they may be American citizens. They're poor. And some are from Puerto Rico, and some are from New York, and some are from Texas, or whatever it may be. They're a very diverse group within the groups. The same for black people, the same for anyone who isn't white, and even white people. You can see, we tend to see ourselves as very diverse, right? Southerners, Northerners, Westerners, whatever it may be. We see each other as these groups when the groups are made up of individuals. And what you need to find is you need to do stuff that benefits the most people. And it doesn't matter then. You gotta get people up above the poverty level all across the board. And that's when you have a successful country, when everybody is given a level playing field to go up from. And that's what we haven't done and what we haven't managed to do. And the party or the group that does that will never lose another election.
The thing I think I'm most intrigued by, impressed by, it's the one thing I always watch documentaries and videos and movies about. It's about that period in the 60s, the civil rights movement. And
Mm-hmm.
here's why I'm impressed by it. You have a group of people of color, Black people. They were a minority. They were, for all intents and purposes, back in that day, second class citizens. They had no power. They had nothing going for them. They were treated like fucking cattle. And they said, hey, we're going to push back and try to get some rights. We're trying to get treated like regular people on a par with white people. They had no possibilities, they had no advantages, but they still said, fuck it, we're going to fight for it. And they got somewhere. And the reason why I think that's important, people now, reasonable people, 50% of this country saying, what can we do? How can we fight back? We should look at the civil rights. We should
Yeah.
look at the people of color, what they did, because we have more advantages than they did to fight back. So absolutely, we can fight back with all that we have available.
Well, absolutely. I did a TikTok where I basically said, look, Social Security accounts for a portion of my income. I won't be on the street if I lose it or if it's reduced, but it will, change my circumstances substantially. And for other people, it will literally mean homelessness for them because that's all they've got, maybe a grand or less per month. That's it. That's all. That's their income. And
Right.
I had
And you can't live on that.
no, you can't, not absolutely, and it definitely hit a nerve because I had 40,000 people respond to it, and many of them saying, "I don't know what I'll do." I'm only living on this. I would be thrown out of my home. I mean, out of those 40,000 people, a goodly group of them were saying that. So I ended it by saying what you have to do is call and write your representative in the House of Representatives and both your senators and tell them quite simply, if you allow anyone to touch Social Security, I will immediately start a petition to have you recalled. I will vote against you and your party in every way that I can, and I will not forget it because you work for me, not for the billionaires who want to do this. You've got to tell them in no uncertain terms, and I don't care what your political persuasion, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you've got to do this because you will be impacted regardless of who you are. And if they should do it, then I will tell people get in your car, get on a bus, jump on the train, head for Washington. You want to
Right.
see a march on Washington? Give some old people. We got canes and we know how to use them, and we're coming for you. If you
Well,
mess with Social Security, I guarantee it. I will do it. If I have to walk, I will go there. I will load a bus with everybody that I can get, and we will go and we will let our voices be heard.
absolutely. And that's what people have to understand. For decades, we've been apathetic. That's why we
Mhm.
are where we are right now, because you had other things to do. You didn't speak out. You didn't speak your mind. You didn't make your beliefs known. But now we're at a point, a tipping point, a dangerous point. Now is the time to get loud, keep talking. People always say, what should I do? Keep talking, talk to other people, call your congress people or write to your congress people. It may seem insignificant because you think you're nobody, but if everybody does it, that's the one weapon people in this country have: public opinion. People will bend
Exactly.
to public opinion. And a perfect example of that is after the CEO was shot, then totally tone deaf Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield comes out and says, we're only going to cover so much anesthesia. They got pushback. We spoke out.
Yeah.
We complained to them. We were in the media with them, and they pulled it back within a couple of hours.
Yeah.
That's how strong we are. But we've got to be willing to do it, not be lazy, and not be fucking apathetic.
Right. And we have social media. It used to be you had to write a letter, and I had an aide tell me when I was first starting out in news. I asked him about a particular thing. Are you getting it? Are you hearing from people on this? And he said, quite frankly, if we get a dozen letters on something, we consider that a landslide, and we look at it seriously.
Wow.
A dozen.
Well, and that's the opportunity. That's the opportunity. That's the leveling of the field a little bit. Social media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not everybody has a huge platform on social media, but people that do have platforms need to put it out and get people talking and create that groundswell or that grassroots effort. If we get 12 people calling, what if we got 12,000?
Yeah,
Then
exactly.
it becomes something that they need to respond to because it's too many people. And that's where our power is. And we got to realize that and use it to our best advantage every fucking day, henceforth through the next 4 years.
Right, and we can do that, and we can also march on Washington if we need to. But your metaphor, looking at the civil rights movement, I mean, there were white people who helped out. There were white people who jumped on the bandwagon. But quite frankly, a lot of them from the North should have just stayed home and worked there.
Yeah.
The black people took care of it in the South. They took the blows. They were attacked, killed, murdered, ridden down, beaten, but they still changed it. That's what changed it. And the March on Washington, when the politicians saw, well, this is a real thing, and we got to deal with it because those are votes. That's what it comes down to.
And like I said before, what they accomplished with absolutely no advantages is truly amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be an education for us to know that with 50% of the country in the position where they're concerned about Social Security and Medicare, we should be able to change that quick, fast, and in a hurry by just speaking out and going after the people that are trying to attack what's important to us.
That's right. And once we do that, once people seize their power and see it, then we can have universal Medicare. We can have everybody covered. We can have it working. We can, every other industrialized democracy is able to do it. Surely we can too. We could get rid of insurance. We know it's a worthless industry. Nobody needs it.
Yeah.
Nobody had insurance when I was a kid, literally. I mean, we'd go to the doctor, pay $5, we'd get the medicine or whatever. He'd send us on if need be, but there was no there was no insurance. None.
We didn't have we didn't have student loan banks either.
No, that was all through the government for sure.
Right.
And and that is something that has to be addressed. All of those have to be. Probably it was not great to say we'll do loan forgiveness. What they should have done was say we will stop usurious interest rates and make those and do rebates to people who've been paying. Quite frankly, if you borrowed $20,000 and you've been paying for 60 years, you paid that off long ago. Look back and see when it was paid off. You're not forgiving anything. You're just canceling the interest, which should be done. If you can do it, if you can bail out the airlines, bail out the auto companies, bail out the insurance companies, bail out the banks. If you can do that, you can do it to individuals who were seduced by the idea of an education and then saddled with this huge amount of debt that they'll never be able to pay off. That's insane.
I'm going to go full blown socialist on you here. See what you think of this. After this last election, after Donald Trump's time as president, what's been exposed in this country is we have a huge amount of undereducated, ignorant people.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a crisis in this country.
Yep.
We should be a smarter country. We should be a more educated country. And what does the government do when we have a crisis? They throw money at it, a
Yeah.
hurricane, a fire, or something like this. As far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, right now in the crisis situation we're in, we need to give everybody, anybody, free education, whether it comes from college or trade schools or whatever. We've got a shortage of tradespeople.
Yeah.
We've got a shortage of really educated people. That is a crisis in this country right now. And the November 5th election is absolute proof of that. So we should get as many people educated as possible so they can earn money, pay fucking taxes, survive, and live day to day. This is a crisis in this country. And I know every Republican would say, oh, he's a socialist. No, I'm thinking about the future of the country.
Yeah. Well,
If
I am a democratic socialist, so they can say it all about me that they want to. I think it's the only way to go. Capitalism alone becomes predatory, and it's not a viable system anymore. And eventually, it will crash. That's
right,
just the nature of it. That's the way it's going to happen. So it has to be heavily regulated. See, that's the other side of the coin. They want these gigantic tax cuts for rich people, but they also want to get rid of all the regulations. That's why they want to get rid of these cabinet positions and things, because that's where the regulation comes from. They went to the Supreme Court and last year and for pollution and said, well, we need to be able to pollute, and these regulations keep us from doing it. So instead of the EPA doing it, we're going to have some judges that we already own do it. Okay. And the Supreme
right.
Court said, fine. I mean, that has to be reversed and immediately. But regulation is what makes civilization. It's that simple. You take away the regulations, then it's the Wild West everywhere. And in correlation with what you're talking about, a vast investment in education, make college free, make trade school free. What's the downside? There isn't one. There is no downside. And at the same time, you toughen up regulations. So those carpenters coming out of those trade schools, those plumbers coming out of those trade schools, those electricians, they know what needs to be done, and they have to toe the line on the regulations, because where I live, there is none. And people will buy a new house and it will be falling in within 20 years because of shoddy materials, poorly executed in the sanitation doesn't work. All of it falls apart because it's done primarily by shade tree guys who don't know what they're doing. They don't adhere to the regulations, or the inspector looks the other way or takes a bribe or whatever. And this is what needs to happen. Regulations have to be firmed up everywhere. They have to be enforced. And we can do this. We can have a really well functioning society where if you invent something great and you make $1 billion on it, more power to you, but you're going to pay some taxes on that, buddy.
Absolutely. Well, the one thing that Congress always says, Republicans always say, well, this entitlement or this tax cut or this break for the middle class, how are we going to pay for it? We can't possibly do that unless there's some form to pay for it. Now, when they gave the 2 trillion to the rich people, they go, oh, it'll pay for itself. But guess what?
Didn't,
Donald
didn't.
Trump brought the tax debt up to, or the national debt up to $7 trillion because it didn't pay for itself.
Right.
I'm willing to argue you give everybody free education, more people are going to be working more jobs, paying more taxes, creating more opportunity for this country. It's going to bring the economy up. So it will pay for itself, certainly far more than giving a tax break to people who just send the shit offshore.
All right. And part of the problem with the tariff idea that Trump has now is that's closing the barn door after the horse ran away, because everything was moved offshore. All of that, it's firmly entrenched there. Now, if you wanted to start moving it back and so forth, then at some point, if you could expand the American economy, the manufacturing base and so forth, which is what we're talking about, then you can put tariffs out there if you want to. It's not going to hurt you because you're making your stuff here. It's not subject to a tariff.
Right. Well, and the fact of the matter is Joe Biden did bring manufacturing back here, and
Exactly.
Donald Trump didn't. So
Right.
that tells you something.
And it's fine to manufacture some stuff overseas, I suppose. I mean, when I was a kid, made in Japan was a perjury. If you said something was made in Japan, that meant it was lousy.
Yeah,
That's what it meant back then. That changed. And why did it change? American investment. That's why. Same with
right,
Korea. Same with all of these places that are, booming economies is because of our investment, because they wanted to go where labor was cheap and reap the investments. But at this stage of the game, tariffs are not the answer by any means. It's just going to make stuff more expensive for you and me. Rich people, they're not even going to notice, because they've got all this money. They don't care. Most of them live off loans anyway, and that's another thing. They get paid. These CEOs get paid in stock, which
right,
is not taxed until they sell it. Well, they never sell it. They just use it as collateral to get low interest loans, and they live off that. So
right.
they're tax free then. Change that.
Yeah, I
Wealth
mean,
tax.
that's one of the things that gave Kamala Harris um, problems because people misinterpreted it.
Yeah,
Uh, it was taxing unrealized gains.
right.
Now, everybody thought that would be all their investments. It didn't have anything to do with us. It had to do with the wealthy because, as you said, they have a loophole to get around paying taxes. They get paid in
Dividends,
uh,
whatever.
dividends, whatever, and then they take a loan and they don't pay the fucker back, but they never get taxed for it because it's a loan. It's not technically income. It's little
No,
more than a loophole. And Kamala and the Democrats understood that. And that's where the tax needs to come. Because even though they don't call it income, they're living off the shit and they're paying no taxes. They're doing it legally. They're not doing it illegally. It's just that the game it was all fucking game for wealthy people and they found a way to get around paying taxes. And that's why we have financial issues.
it's been going on for a long time too. You remember the movie The Bridge on the River Kwai?
Yeah.
Quite old, quite a good movie too. Won all kinds of Oscars and everything. William Holden is one of the actors in it, and they really wanted him because he had, they wanted the name and so forth. Because the other guy, the other big name, was an English guy that people didn't necessarily know, so they needed that hook, right? So
Alec Guinness, right?
Alec Guinness, yeah. So they and a few other people, but those were the two biggies, right? So Holden said, "Okay, I'll do it, but I don't want you to pay me. I want you to give me a low interest loan in lieu of salary." And it was scheduled, so he got a huge amount of money as a loan that he was able to use forever and paid no taxes on it. So this has been going on since then.
Yeah.
Once the rich people stumbled on this, they all use it, and it should not be allowed. I mean, I pay tax on everything except a small portion of my Social Security, and Reagan was the first. He created, and I think Trump is doing this a little bit. Reagan created the Greenspan Commission to advise him, and they said, well, tax Social Security. So he did, and that allowed him to divorce himself from it. Well, this is what the best economic minds are telling me to do. And then he talked Tip O'Neill to go along with it, and that's what happened. They started taxing Social Security. Then 1993, Bill Clinton is president, and he kicks in there too. He raises the amount. It was only 50%, but to begin with, then he raised it to like 85% or something because he had to get revenue to make up for all the money that Reagan spent and drove
Right.
up the deficit. And he was able to basically get rid of it. I mean, get rid of the debt there
Yeah.
for a little while, you know, but and that was part of it. And this is another thing. Let's talk about Social Security for just a moment here, because the people don't realize that that is largely what's funding Social Security now. The taxes on Social Security help to fund Social Security, and they're talking about canceling taxes on Social Security. Well, I get Social Security, but I don't mind paying those taxes because it funds it, not just for me, but for the people coming up. Okay. And you take that out, those billions and billions of dollars. Okay. You take that out. All right. That's money not going in to help fund Social Security. You deport all the Mexican guys who pay in, or Hispanic people who pay into the Social Security system and never claim it because they're, quote, illegals. They never are able to access the money they paid in. Well, that's billions and billions of dollars that if you deport those people, they're not going to be paying that in anymore.
And we'll say this, though, you could not charge taxes on Social Security, and it would survive and maybe flourish if you taxed properly those people making over $160,000.
Oh
That
yeah,
would be
if you
enough
did that,
to support
that
them.
that would be easily enough, for sure. And I don't know why they haven't done it. I mean, that should have been a priority in the Obama administration. Should have been a priority. And I know Joe had other things to do, but still, that would have made a huge difference. And made so then we wouldn't have to talk about Social Security anymore. We
Right.
know that the Republicans want to get rid of it. They never voted for it. They've always wanted to get rid of it. They don't like it. It's socialism, blah, blah, blah. But you take Social Security out of the mix, all right? You take my Social Security away, right? And everybody else. Think of all that buying power.
Yeah.
People spend that money. They don't save it. They spend it because they have to live on it. And that powers the American economy. Take that away. What
Well,
happens?
and that's the ironic thing, the short sightedness of this. You take that
Mm-hmm.
away. I don't know even how they benefit, but it does screw up the economy.
Yeah,
It's like the dog eating all the food in front of them every time you put it in front of them. The greed is so bad that eventually you fucking explode, and they
yeah,
don't get that. It's it's
yeah.
it's crazy.
Exactly. So that's three good reasons to keep Social Security. The other thing, there's one reason that so a few reasons that Social Security is, quote, in trouble, which it could be out of very quickly by the one thing that you said, and that's raising the cap, right? When they put Social Security in place, they knew they had to have a constant influx of new workers, and they looked to immigration for that. I mean, immigration after World War II into this country, and I'm talking legal immigration, was huge. You had people coming from everywhere because Europe was a burning cinder. So was Japan, so was much of China, the rest of the world. We got off because of where we were, we got off easy. And that's how we became the richest country in the world after World War II. Essentially, we had no competition. I mean, it was just everybody else got blown up, all of their industry and everything. So we had all these immigrants coming in and starting to pay into Social Security while they were young, and they paid it their whole lives, and that kept Social Security funded and vital. And then and they had families and they bought homes and all of that, and it just really drove the American engine. But then in the starting in the 60s, instead of 5 kids, people, because they didn't need to, grow a garden or anything anymore, they started, well, two kids or 2.4 kids or whatever. So our birth rate dropped and we slowed down immigration. The immigrants that were actually, a lot of them that were paying into it. So those things also. The thing to do is bring in all the immigrants. We got plenty of room, and if the economy is booming, it will just make everything better. There's not a problem with immigration. You can screen out the bad guys, but I mean, there's plenty of bad guys here already that aren't immigrants.
It was just a talking point that worked for them, and it really, I don't think they even really care. Just
No,
we're going to wrap things up, but I just want to say about Social Security. You and I, when we were working, were paying 6.2% in income tax,
right,
or our Social Security tax.
right,
If everybody above $160,000 also paid 6.2%, everything would be fine. It would run perfectly, and we'd have plenty of money.
yeah,
That's what these people are fighting against, paying 6% of the billions they make to keep for themselves.
yeah.
That's the greed. That's the selfishness. That's the dog exploding because they eat too much fucking food. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's silly. It's it's frustrating. And we're going to wrap things up. I know you got shit to do. You're a busy retired old guy. I know you got shit going down in Tennessee. I know you're looking to get out of Tennessee eventually.
Perhaps.
Um, maybe. Well, I got to tell you, we got about 3 inches of snow, and it was like 7 below at one point earlier this
Yeah.
week. So make your choice well.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we would look at two places, not just one. I'd keep a foot here, spend the winters down here and stay up there, maybe, in the
Yeah.
summers, something like that. We're kicking it around. Just one other real quick thing about Social Security. One of the guys who wrote on my TikTok thing, he said, "My wife and I worked our whole lives. We paid into Social Security. We retired 2 years ago. My wife just died from cancer. I won't see a dollar of her Social
Right.
Security." We need to address that. I think we do. I
If you
think,
make it in, if my wife makes an investment and she dies, I would go to me, and that's the way Social Security should be.
right, and we could do that with my pension. I had the option of uh, doing a joint survivor, so that when I die, I got a little bit less that
Yeah.
way. Joint and survivor, it's called, but then my wife gets most of it if I kick, right? And then we could do that with Social Security, make it a joint and survivor thing where maybe you reduce both benefits a little bit in this case.
Yeah.
I mean, where there's two people, but then the survivor gets the bulk of the other person's. It could do it. It could do it. Otherwise, it seems to me quite fair to do that. So think about that.
Yeah. Think about that indeed. Ed, thank you very much for coming back. I know people were looking forward to it. They were asking me for it. We missed last week, but we're
Yeah.
back this week. So thank you. Thank you for joining us once again. Oh, by the way, we need to tell folks how they can find you. Everybody ask. You go to at Holler Troll, HOLLERTROLL on Facebook and on YouTube, correct?
No, YouTube and TikTok.
Oh, what did I say? Facebook? Fuck
Yeah.
Facebook. They kicked me off. They
Oh, well, there
fucking
you go.
suspended me. Fuck
Mm.
Facebook. Yeah. TikTok and YouTube at Holler Troll. I encourage you to check out his shit because it's good. And
Let
I
me
just
run.
told you.
Yeah, add holler troll. Yeah. Now, I gotta shake my finger at TikTok. I posted a statement the other day. Donald Trump was chosen as Time Magazine's. Or I said conservatives, something along the lines of conservatives are happy because Donald Trump was selected as Time's Person of the Year. So was Adolf Hitler in
Yeah.
1938. They deleted it.
Oh, you can't because you said Adolf Hitler. It was just AI
Apparently
coming.
anything that has Hitler in it will be deleted. I got a warning or something. I appealed, but I never heard anything. So,
No,
but yeah, I
they
mean
won't give it to you.
that's a simple fact. You can draw any conclusions you want from it, but it's a simple fact. Trump in 2024, Hitler in 1938, Person of the Year.
And if you would have just said Shitler instead of Hitler, you probably would have got away with it.
Oh, I didn't think of that. I'll do that next time.
Anyway, thank you, Ed, very much. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.